Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mildly Competitive. On today's episode, we're going to talk about some playtesting results and some recaps of local events we've been going to. We're going to talk a little bit about the season reset and what it might mean and some of the information we've been seeing. And then we're going to wrap up with how to get into the game itself, as well as how to find events to play in once you've gotten into it. And today we have a decently full crew, not everyone, but we've got Dyson, DJ, Eric, Trenton, and myself. So, to kick things off, let's go ahead and talk about some playtesting results and recaps. We all recently played in our little locals this last weekend. We all tried out a couple different decks. I primarily was playing Gardevoir. I'm starting to get some reps in for that one. I figured it's about time for me to start playing some good decks as opposed to just weird jank I've smashed together because cards look cool. And pretty good. Lost in the finals to Trenton. But it was a very bad hand, and I don't think there's much anyone could have done about that. And that's just the way the best of one goes. Nothing special about the list. I was trying, I think, the third or fourth place NAIC list with the penny, and I don't think there's anything else particularly special. I think there was one less energy or something. I don't remember. But yeah, so I'm just playing Gardevoir. It's good, obviously. I see why everyone's playing it, and I'll probably keep playing it until I find something that's decent, as opposed to everything else I've been playing, which has been not. Who else has been doing some stuff?
Just been playing Lost Box still. It feels good, so might as well stick with it.
Which Lost Box variant are you playing?
Turbo Lost Box with Dragonite, Raikou, and Drapion. But thinking about cutting the Drapion. Not sure yet. I don't. There's not a bunch of Mew right now, and the Fusion Mew is not a super hard matchup even without the Drapion. But we'll see.
Have you found the Drapion matters in any specific other matchup?
No. I thought it could be good in the Rapid Strike Urshifu and Inteleon matchup, but it's not necessarily that great, especially when you have to put the 60 damage counter somewhere. That can also help your opponent out a little bit.
Yeah, doing 190 doesn't one-shot any of the basic Vs, so it's really tricky to get it consistently to do something.
Yeah, so it's really only good in the Mew matchup, and that just kind of makes the matchup quicker. It doesn't really change if you're going to win or lose the matchup all that much.
I've been testing some Lost Box. I've been testing the Garantina V-Star variant with the Wu Chen tech, and I've been finding that deck to be pretty effective. I took third place in the weekend, or this past weekend, at a League Cup. I went 3-1. Should have gone 4-0, but can't win them all with these best of one games. And the Garantina with the Jet energy is just a really big help. It's just a game changer for sure.
With that deck, how frequent are you getting to 10 in the loss zone to threaten your V-Star cover?
You can get to 10 on like turn 3 or 4 at the least. That Abyss Seeking attack on the Garantina V helps a lot in the early matchups.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of Tina users play with the, just go up and use the Giratina Lost Seeking. Like, it seems solid.
Yeah, I think it's very solid. You know, if you got some Battle VIP Pass junk you don't need, you just take 2 other better cards, which happened a lot this past weekend.
It's almost just a free chorus.
It is.
Pretty good.
It is like a free chorus.
Just costs your attack.
But then you're drawing a card at the start of your turn, so it's effectively a chorus.
Yeah.
You just can't select the last card. It's random.
Yeah.
And then the Wu Chen's, it's a good comeback card.
Does that come up at all during your games?
I was a turn short from pulling off the Wu Chen attack. That was that match I lost.
Yeah. You're like 1 energy away or something, right?
Yeah, I was 1 energy away, and my Comfeys couldn't pull it off. The flower selecting. But yeah, Garantina V-Star, very solid. Huge upgrades. It's got a lot of potential.
Right, yeah, no, definitely. Before, Paldea evolved, that deck was non-existent, right? It was something that in Lost Origins released. It was played quite a bit, and then it lost popularity to the speed of the format. And, now it's able to keep up with the likes of Turbo Box and draw power of Gardevoir, so it's a good choice. The deck that I've been playtesting with this week, I decided to build a V big basic box deck with Luminous Energy and Jirachi V, being able to keep basic energies in play. And it's been a fun deck. I've played in two events. The league tournament the first time went 3-0, and then the second time I played it, I went 1-2. Giving a win to a new player who it was his first tournament. The way the pairing systems work, sometimes the juniors get paired up to masters, and just took that opportunity to teach the kid a little bit about the game and making proper decisions, and made sure he got the win so he could walk away with the pack to open. But yeah, the deck focuses on attackers like Raikou V, Suicune V, Dragonite V. It plays a steel attacker and Berserker, I think is his name.
Yep.
Yeah, Berserker.
Berserker, yeah. 20 damage for each card in your hand for a steel on a colorless. And then all of your attackers are powered up through Melanie, so using Greninja to discard water energy or concealed cards and using Melanie to charge up your V Pokemon. You can attack as soon as turn 2. And it just felt really fast of a deck. I think with more of a cup set we'll be attending later on this month, I'll spend some time investing into Turbo Lost Spots. I feel like that's really strong for competitive decks. As well as I have a secret deck I'm working on in the background.
Oh.
Yeah, some Hisuian Zoroark. I know we have Squawk ability in the format. I'm starting to bring that back out. So we'll see if I decide to play that this weekend.
And I've been playing the old Arcdura. Tweaked my list just a little bit, changed up a couple of the supporter counts, but I'm really enjoying where it's at. I added in Hawlucha and the Luminion V because I wasn't running it, and I found that I kind of needed it just to close out some games as getting a boss or getting something to help try to disrupt the opponent via either Judge or Iono. Of course, started Hawlucha one game. As soon as I added it, the first game started Hawlucha. So that's always a super fun risk with that card. Didn't go super great. Went 1 and 2. I started Umbreon a lot in my matches, and it almost got there. Except in one game where I drew absolutely nothing. I think I could have done better in that game if I bossed up a different card, but either way, I do still believe in the Arcdura deck, and gonna continue to make that work. I think I might cut the Hawlucha again. We'll see. There's a couple tweaks I need to make, but
Does the Hawlucha work well with the Alakazam, or what's the specific matchup it's used for?
So
or is it just
there's like two ways to go about it. That Hawlucha's good if you're leaning more into the Arceus V-Star attacker line, because then it makes it for the Dragonite V is really what you need it for. Because if you can like send it back to bench via a rope or something, do the Hawlucha, and this is assuming they've already attacked, which is kind of the tricky part. Then you can Alakazam the 2, and then that's 200. So if you don't have the choice belt, it's basically that.
Gotcha.
Because then you move the 2 with Alakazam, and then that gives you 30. You move it back up with either a boss or a Umbreon V-Star or V-Max, and then get the 200 knockout. But it's basically like trying to get another choice belt. So it's like...
Yeah, another choice belt might just be...
Yeah, it's probably just another choice belt.
Yeah.
The other trick, too, I found while watching some Omnipoke playing some Arcdura, he mentioned with the Umbreon V, if you combine it with not just double turbo, but also the Alakazam, you can infinitely lock people in place by doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm just
And you can still take knockouts as well.
Exactly.
So you don't have to wait for them to deck out.
So in the Guardy matchup, if they're not running a tech piece to try to swap in or out, boom, you got them infinitely locked. I didn't even think about the Alakazam in that matchup. I just figured with, like, I'll just double attach to DTEs, but Alakazam also lets you do knockouts.
Yeah. But you do eventually have to attach, like, a DTE because you're doing 30 and it only moves 20.
Right.
So.
Because you do 30, move 20, then you do. Yeah,
So
it'll
yeah,
build
you
up.
eventually have to.
Mhm. Yeah, that's. There's still really interesting text with that deck. It seems so straightforward, but there's still a bunch of cool stuff. So I'm really enjoying it.
What's the first attack called? Is it Mean Look?
Mean look. Yep.
Yeah.
Single
People
dark,
not playing
30 damage. They can't retreat.
People not playing switching cards. That's really strong.
Yeah, a lot of lists are looking into Penny, and I think Switch Cart or Rope is starting to become more of a tech piece for Guardy. That's a more recent thing. Like, not a lot of them are running it right now. So currently, if you can pull up, um, like if they've like got greedy with their attachments and they don't have much to be able to retreat anything, if you can pull up a Corellia or some big basic that they can't, or some like non-basic that they can't retreat with, then you can lock them in. Because they do run Penny right now, which could, if you pull up like a Routes or the Zacian, they can get away. Dyson and Trenton had mentioned they both went to an event this weekend. You guys want to give a little bit of a recap of how it went and what your matchups were? We know roughly how you did at the end, but more specifically the matchups and maybe some pieces of information you came away from, like different lines you want to look at or different like thought processes that you want to approach.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go first. But I found out why. Well, I found out why we don't do like best of one for bigger events. It's not all that great. You dead draw one game or something and then you lose. But round one, I went against Darker IV Star, Dark Box, and I had a pretty good that matchup. My hand looked pretty good and everything. I had like a VIP, and I was like, all right, we're good. And then when I looked in the deck, there was only one Colress there.
Oof.
Oh,
And so then I just tried to draw as many cards as I could. Didn't get anything. Got Iono'd for another 6. Couldn't get anything out of that. And then finally on like turn 3 or 4, I got the Forest Sealstone for the Colress. But by that time, he'd already taken like 2 or 3 prizes, I think. And I almost came back, but I was one turn away from coming back. But then he also had a penny as well. And he pennied one of his Pokemon that was damaged. So, yeah, that was just rough. And then game 2, or round 2, I played against Mew. And I was like, all right, I'm actually playing the Drapion because I was considering cutting it, but I left it in. I was like, all right, we're good here. And then I looked at my opening hand and I was like, oh, this is bad. It was like 2 Super Odd, a Vacuum, a 4 Sealstone, and like 2 Mirage Gate, a Sableye or something. So I start the Sableye, I draw a Heavy Ball, play it, get another Sableye out of the prizes and bench it. And then he knocks out my Sableye because he went first. So then I draw, I get a Comfey, just barely getting bailed out every time. I'm like, all right, I might still be able to pull this back. And then, but then he just benches his Ice Cube and knocks out the Comfey instead of the Sableye, and I just draw, and it's nothing. So pretty unfortunate games because after those 2, it was just pretty unlucky, and there was by that point I was like out of top 4 contention. But then round 3 and 4 were pretty smooth. I played against Dialga V-Star, and can't remember what I played against round 3 to be honest. But those were pretty easy because I was actually able to set up. But yeah, it's pretty unfortunate how if you just don't get really good draws for a couple rounds, you're kind of just out.
was there any interesting lines or play patterns you had picked up, or was it a fairly routine event?
Yeah, it was fairly routine for me at least. I guess I gotta show Daniel a line because he was playing against Control. He had 1 prize left. All his energy were in play. And he had a Gardevoir EX up with just 2 energies on there, so he didn't have enough to attack. And in his hand, he had Collapsed and Mew, and 4 Pokemon on his bench. So if he didn't see the play, but if he had benched the Mew and Collapsed, he could have discarded one of the Pokemon with energy to be able to attach him to his Gardevoir, which I showed him after. That I guess that's the only like weird or interesting play that I saw wasn't actually in my games.
Cool.
Yeah, those minor errors can be very game changing.
For sure.
My round 1, I played against Miraidon, and Miraidon's a really fast deck. Gets all its Pokemon out. Turn 1. he runs really hot off of electric generator, hitting like 4 energies off of 2 of them. So he had a early prize lead with his Raikou, started taking knockouts. Knocked out my Tina V, so I was down 3-6. I finally got my Mirage Gates and my Tina V Star up. And the cool thing about Tina V is it's a pretty good comeback deck. It's like once your opponent's ahead, you still have a lot of potential to come back.
Right, and also runs out of steam like after the like it runs really hot at the beginning, but then starts running out of steam a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, once they lose a single attacker, they're basically dead.
Yeah.
Unless they went crazy on like quad generator.
Yeah.
it was just the beginning. They went crazy. So they got that early lead, and I finally got my Tina V Star up, and I was putting in work with that. I knocked out his active Raikou, and then I knocked out his Raichu, which is the only card that could one-shot my Tina V Star in his deck. Is that Raichu? So that was a pretty big threat. And then he Iono'd me. Iono'd me to 2, and he swung with his Magnus.
Hold on, let me guess. One of them was a chorus.
No. It was off of that I got Battle VIP and Switch Cart. And he swung at my Tina V Star, and I can't use Switch Cart. It's only for basics. So I left my Tina V Star in the active, and it was just a draw pass. And then he knocks out my Tina V Star to bring him to the 1 prize card. And that's when I had to send up my Comfey. And you always don't get what you need in those flower selectings. It's very awkward. And I just couldn't get the W out there with the Wu Chen. Round 2, I played against a Palkia Ice Rider Calyrex deck.
That's a blast.
I won that in 3 or 4 turns. I started off really hot. I went second. Got to 5 cards in the Lost Zone. Knocked out his Bidoof, his draw power, with the Cramorant. And then he comes back and swings with Palkia. And then I top deck Colress, which gets me my Mirage Gates online. And I knock out his Palkia V-Star that has 280 HP, which is just the right amount of HP for a knockout.
Brutal.
And then he sends up his Calyrex VMAX with energy on it. Hits me for 250. And with Garantina, you have to discard two energies into the Lost Zone, which boosted me to 9. And Calyrex is his only Pokemon left. And I had 3 prizes left, so I used my rope to send up my Comfey and attached a Jet Energy to my Tina V-Star. Mirage gated it back up and used the V-Star power to knock out his VMAX for the game. So that was pretty cool. Jet Energy is very effective in a lot of scenarios. And then my round 3, I played against Dialga V-Star. I beat that deck pretty good. My deck plays 2 Path of the Peaks, so I shut that down. He couldn't get his Rotom, his draw power going, or his Dialga's up. So it was just a boss KO, his attackers for game. And then my round 4, I played against Daniel, and this was to get into the top 4.
It was a 1-in for top 4.
Oh, man.
Of course.
Daniel started off pretty hot. Battle VIP passes, get all his Curlies up. And I couldn't get my Tinas online, so I was just hitting with Cram. 110, spreading 110 around the board. And then he bosses up my Garantina, knocks that out, and I top draw a Lost City. I decided to tech a Lost City this weekend, which is a very effective card.
Yes.
Super effective. And I Lost City'd, and I had 10 on the Lost Zone, and I lost mined his Gardevoir, that had his baby Gardevoir that had 120 damage on it. His Radiant Greninja that already had spit damage on it. And a Mew to take 3 prizes.
Lost City only Lost Zone's the active Pokemon, right?
No, it should Lost Zone all of them.
Yeah, it Lost Zone's all Pokemon.
Gotcha.
Have you felt like you've ever been like hurt by the Lost City before? Like, has someone used like the Lost City against you by like putting your Cram or your Sableye in the Lost Zone when you needed them?
There's actually been a couple times where that's happened, where I feel like I've had a Super Rod in hand and my Tina V-Star gets knocked out and I can only Rod in the energy back instead of the Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But that's unfortunate. But I only usually play the Lost City to go on the offensive.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I beat Daniel to get into top 4 and I took 3rd place. And got 10 championship points. That was probably the highlight of the weekend. Just getting those championship points.
Putting one of us on the board.
Yeah.
Did you end up finding? Do you think you found any cool lines or plays throughout that weekend, or do you think it was a pretty bog standard Lost Tina line or day?
Lost City. Lost City is. It's not in most Tina decks, but I think it's a very, very strong card. Going up against those Gardevoir decks and killing those Sableyes if you're playing against the Turbo Box. It's a very effective disruptive card. And they can't get it back, which is insane.
Okay.
Right. Even though you're powering up your Lost Zone, if you take out their Pokemon that care about 10 in the Lost Zone, then kind of did its job.
Yeah, I don't hate the Lost City. That's actually something that could be interesting to try.
As someone who plays at least 3 of them, I agree, it's a strong card.
Yeah, except into that matchup when you're like, oh, I want to bump their Lost City, and then it's like, oh, well, guess I have another Lost City in hand.
Hey now, I want Lost City in play.
Yeah, exactly. He's playing Arcdura. Arcdura.
Just tanky V-Maxes, tanky V-Stars.
Big beefy boys deck.
Yep.
Best V-Star ability. It's a pretty insane deck.
Speaking of putting points on the board, we are going into a new season now, but we don't have much information about it. The Pokemon website, if you check your account, says there's unlimited points you can gain for leagues and cups at this point. So, what do we all think about that? Do we think they're gonna make any drastic changes, or do you think they're dragging their feet after NAIC? Like, what do you think is going on here?
I think they'll probably make us wait till Worlds. If I had to guess, it'd be. I think there's one of 2 ways they could do it, and I'm not sure which one they're gonna do. I think either way, it's gonna be a best finish limit of 8 for those. But I'm not sure if they're gonna cap it at 2 per quarter, because then that gives it so that you just go to your 2, and then if you win your 2, you're not just like making the cups like and challenges way more crowded for the first quarter, or each quarter, I guess you could say. But especially the first couple. Or if they're going to just leave it at 8 for the whole season, and you can get those whenever. But I think that's how it's gonna look.
I'd be interested to see if they decide to. I think it depends on if we're keeping the same amount of points requirements for Worlds this next season or not, or I guess this season. If it's going to stay 350, if it's going back up to 500.
Yeah, I'd be very, very surprised if it was at 350. I think they are going to move it up to the 8 for Cups and Challenges, and if they do that, it feels like they have to move the CP up.
What could be nice is if they keep it unlimited, but then change it to 500 points. Because that does give a lot more avenues to get into Worlds. Especially because we don't know the entire season for regionals. I almost wonder if it's a sign that there may not be as many regionals. That's purely speculation. But We know that there are some people who aren't going to be running a regional Team Northwest this year.
If they do keep it unlimited, I'd be all for that. But that'd be a little surprising for sure.
It'd be nice as like a comeback after 2 years of basically nothing for a local level.
Yeah, but that is going to make cups and challenges way more competitive because those people who are going for top 16, they're going to be farming cups and challenges.
It's true.
Farm in. I'm gonna be one of those people farm in.
Do you think with the advent of PTCG Live, as busted as it is, that they might take to doing some online events to gain CP?
I feel like that's big possibility that they might do.
Yeah, like we had the Players Cup events over COVID, and those were really cool events. I played in a couple of those.
Yeah.
And I could see them doing something like that again for CP, but I don't. They might have one for like a travel award or something, because I believe that's what the Players Cups were for. But I don't know if they're gonna give out CP for them necessarily.
I think from my point of view, I don't think Pokemon expected an AIC to almost outgrow the event, the venue that is, right? Selling out almost instantly. It it kind of like reminds me of other companies that I've had experience with, like, Blizzard releasing tickets for the BlizzCon, and if you don't get a ticket in the 3 tries to release them, then you're pretty much paying scalper prices to get in. So from a business standpoint, I think they're going to capitalize on their growth, right? They're about to release 151 here after the summer in September, Pokemon 151. And in August, they will announce the location of Worlds. So it might be an unlimited cups or challenges to get people interested into going into Worlds. With all the hype that's going to come around with 151, because not only are they going to target the existing players, but that original 151 has 30 years of history, and people still love to come back and open packs for their chance to see their favorite Pokemon in the first generation. So
Nostalgia's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, but I think hopefully Pokemon Company's pretty realistic about that the collector versus player audiences are pretty drastically different.
Yeah.
And so I think 151 is a good way to get some people in and playing again, but I would be very surprised if we see a significant uptick, more than maybe like double-digit percentages of people like starting to play it again. I think it's pretty realistic to see that we'll likely see a boom in like sealed product or people buying cards, but I don't necessarily think we're going to see a huge boom in more people playing.
Yeah.
Potentially.
If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if there's less people playing this coming season than the previous season.
Mm-hmm.
I think the big thing too is because they had to lock in a lot of these venues well in advance, that like the demand they've seen, they weren't really able to capitalize on because they're so far in the past. They rented out these venues.
Yeah,
So
all the way back in last August.
yeah, so it's likely we'll see bigger venues this year. But yeah, I'm curious to see if it'll sell out the same way it did last season.
Yeah, especially because last season was the first real time we were able to jump out of the COVID season and have these events.
And also, I feel like regionals were bigger last year because that was, for the most part, the only way you could get points. So if you wanted to go to Worlds, you had to go to almost, like, most of the regionals. And this year, that's not the case. So I think we're going to see probably a little bit smaller regionals, but, like, because they're going to be, like, mixed between regionals and locals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, we'll likely see the same, if not a slight bump in the player base. But yeah, I could totally see the actual events end up being slightly smaller just because people are playing at their home stores as opposed to having to travel.
Yeah.
Right. Well, do you guys think this is a sign that they're probably going to, they're bringing the World Championship to North America somewhere?
Okay, so yeah, I think they're going to start branching out of the U.S. more so.
I could see somewhere in Latin America get a chance.
That would be tough for travel.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd
Right.
be really hard for travel.
Yeah, they have Oceania, or NAIC, UIC. What was the fourth? Was there a fourth international continent?
Let's see.
There's
OCIC, LA, Latam.
AUIC, right?
No.
No, it's LAIC
Yeah.
and EUIC.
And then there's Latin America IC. And then Oceanic.
Yeah.
And then
Oceanic.
yeah.
So
yeah, I think realistically they could be pushing for not just the U.S. But then again, it's the biggest. I mean, it's probably the area-wise, it's the biggest place that people play Pokemon. So maybe it makes more sense for them to do it there. But I don't know. I could see them trying to jump around a bit, especially as the interest has been like picking up in those other areas.
Yeah, I'd be totally fine if it came back to California though.
California or in Hawaii.
Make it so much easier.
Yeah.
Hawaii's such a hard travel though. Sometimes. It'd be fun though.
It's not one you can drive to, unfortunately.
But you could, but
Yeah.
it may not make it very far.
Yeah.
So, speaking of these large events, I want to take a step back. And let's say you're a brand new player wanting to get into Pokemon, right? We talk about these big events, we talk about playtesting and stuff, but realistically, if you're a new player or you know someone who's a new player, what is going to be the best way for you to get into playing the Pokemon trading card game? And I think we have a couple ideas on that. And it kind of breaks down into two different categories here. We have, if you want to play physically with the actual cards going into a local store, or just digitally via the online tabletop simulator, or Pokemon trading card online. So I think we kind of want to break down the different avenues you have and kind of what your options are when you're going from physical to digital. And starting off with the simplest one, I think, is going to be the digital, which is really simple. All you gotta do is download PTCG Live, and it has a tutorial on there, and it provides you some decks, and it's a pretty easy way to actually get into playing Pokemon. I actually have a friend who his first exposure to Pokemon was through PTCG Live, and so he's got a little Zoroark deck, and he has the little decks that they give you baseline. He's just been playing the ladder and getting to learn the game itself, and so it seems like a pretty effective way to start playing Pokemon outside of online being dead. Rest in peace. But do any of y'all have any thoughts about like getting into it in a digital way besides just playing PTCG Live?
From a digital perspective, right? Just kind of going on to platforms like YouTube and Twitch, you can find some awesome streamers or content creators that either play wacky decks or they're streaming some competitive playtesting, and learn that way. Watching other people play is a good way to learn. So that's another digital resource that is huge. And
truthfully speaking, it's tricky because online was more superior than Live in many ways, but Live is definitely a bit newer looking, so it's fresher, so people like it more. But like
for competitive players, it's not as good.
Not quite, because other options are like tabletop simulator. Technically, you can play Pokemon on, but it's not nearly as easy to get into as Live. Hopefully,
and there's not as many people playing it on there, so there's no streaming, and like there's probably not great tutorials for it. So I think if you wanted to get into it, the best bet digitally is PTCG Live, because it's completely free, and you can buy some packs to start getting your collection going. But realistically, they hand you enough decks. The user interface is totally serviceable, and it has a tutorial, which I think is the biggest aspect of it. It'll teach you how to play the game.
It also helps that every pack comes with a code that you can use for live.
Yes.
That's a huge boon.
So, moving to the physical space, I think the place that I don't know if most people play in, but a significant amount of players play in, is at like a local game store, or even just like at a kitchen table. So let's say you wanted to get into it physically. And a lot of times, what'll happen is you'll end up playing it due to either a younger sibling getting into it, or maybe you have a young child who likes the show or just likes looking at the cards and now they want to start trying to play it. And Pokemon actually has some avenues for you to get in and do so. And so I don't know if DJ, speaking as a father, would you like to comment on how to get into Pokemon while also teaching others?
Yes, absolutely. We'll see. My background specifically, I played Pokemon competitively, actually with Dyson when Dyson was younger. Um, so he was a junior slash senior playing Pokemon, and we just got into it with friends, and he learned being around competitive players. Um, but fast forward, now that I've had children, to introduce my kids into the game, we actually purchased the Pokemon Battle Academy as a Christmas present. I believe it was from GameStop. Yeah, it was one of the last few um, that was in stock. This is in 2021 when Pokemon was selling off the shelves nonstop. And, we were able to get a Battle Arena deck and Christmas present. Both my boys were super excited. It came with 3 ready to go battle decks that were designed to be balanced within each other. So there was a Pikachu deck, a Charizard deck, and a Mewtwo deck that were all fairly balanced. And they were actually pre-set up to play a game start to finish while reading the rule book. So um, it had your basics set for you, your energies, and it was teaching you what to do each turn. And then you got to a point where after you learn the basics, you could shuffle up any point in time. It had a game map that showed where everything went, um, and damage counters to keep track of damage. Um, and yeah, that was a fantastic way to get in and just learn the basic rules of Pokemon. Because that's the whole gist of it, is understanding the games to get into it. And it did a great job of explaining some of the newer mechanics, like V Pokemon and taking 2 prize cards, even though it was a powerful card, as well as showing the steps of evolution from basic to stage 1 to stage 2. So um, I highly recommend any parents looking to teach their kids the game just to get started with the Battle Academy. Um, I know tons of kids in schools out there are bringing their Pokemon cards from packs that they bought to trade their cool cards. Um, but if they actually want to get in and learn the game, that's a fantastic way to get started.
It also helps that most stores have too many of them, so they'll likely get rid of them for a way deeper discount.
Absolutely.
And so let's say that you've got your Battle Academy, you've learned how to play, you're confident evolving your Pokemon. What's the next step from there? Let's say now you want to start playing, and maybe you want to, take a look at how Pokemon's played at maybe a more competitive or with a custom deck. And that actually might be a good throw over to Dyson, seeing as you did start with the Battle Academy. How did you move on from there? What did you look into or find going from the rudimentary basic deck into playing it as a more competitive or even just a non-kitchen table player?
Well, I just after kicking everyone's butt with my Charizard and Mewtwo deck, I wanted to just find out like what really is the best decks to play. Cause I just really I like winning. It's all for me. It's all about winning. And I guess I really studied what was like the best decks to play and really learning the meta.
Yeah, Dyson. So when we got back into it, what were some of the products that you purchased to get some of maybe like the meta staples?
It was those. I forget what those trainer boxes are called. Those have a lot of good
Trainer
staples in
toolkits.
it. Yeah, those trainer toolkits were the first. That was the first thing I bought when I'm getting back into it, because those have a lot of really competitive trainer cards.
Yeah, those are really great for providing like the staples, or and what we mean by staples specifically is cards you're going to play in a lot of decks, or almost every deck is going to play. Your Pokeballs, your Ultra Balls, your all of your different like supporters, like Professor's Research, or the cards that are important for constructing a solid Pokemon deck. And something else Pokemon Company releases right now is a uh, the League decks, which are pre-assembled decks that take a shape of or inspired from topping tournament winning lists. So if you're a new player and you got your League kit, or you got your trainer's toolkit, and you want to play with a pre-built deck, you could also purchase the Pokemon TCG League deck, which gives you a fully built deck out of the box. So you don't have to worry about building or assembling. You can just sit down, read through the cards, and play it at a local event. And so, speaking of local events, let's say you want to find some to play. Trenton, what's the best way a player could go and find, or new player could go and, find out how to play Pokemon, not just at their kitchen table with their siblings or friends?
You could use the Pokemon event locator to find a league or a league near you where you could find other people to play with who will kind of like help you out and help you start to get better at the game. And
Cool. And so that I assume that League Locator lets you find like a store, or a trading card spot that'll let you play the game with other people.
yeah.
Is there any good piece of advice that you'd give for trying to find a good store, or maybe getting a good idea on what you could do at a store if you're a new player?
I guess yeah, just really finding the leagues on the locator and then seeing what time they have their leagues at and going then, and like just checking out the store and then looking around and seeing like what other people playing Pokemon, and just ask if you can get a game in with them or something.
Yeah, you
Or
could maybe even call the store beforehand and be like, "Hey, what's your scene look like? How many people show up? What time? I'm a new player. What kind of like, do you think it's friendly or not?" I think is a good way to,
yeah, for sure.
get at least reach out beforehand to see maybe what you could be expecting, instead of just, sometimes randomly show up and up works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
Um, and so from that point, and moving into our next topic with finding and locating these events, what if you wanted to go to the next step? You wanted to find, bigger events or compete in bigger events. Um, Eric, what would you think is like a next step once someone has, found their store locator and wants to move to the next level? What would they kind of do to track down those events, and maybe how would they, get kind of ready for them?
It's pretty much just the event locator. They're the ones that it, Pokemon doesn't actually have too many more other tools in terms of trying to find stuff. A lot of it is through that event locator on their website. And that's probably where you want to look for regionals at that point. And those typically happen every couple weekends.
Um, yeah, but my little add-on to that is, when me and Dyson, moved here from a new city, like we wanted to play Pokemon and get prepared for a regional championship. We used the locator and found a local card store shop, and that's actually where we met. Eric, Casey, Daniel, Trenton, and yeah, just ended up staying consistent, going to league events every week, developing relationships, um, and really like it can seem intimidating getting into Pokemon competitively, but the people are fantastic. There's been several times where so many people have asked for a certain card for a deck so that they could play in a tournament, and no one's afraid to be like, "Hey, I got an extra," or "Hey, you can have this," and it's a great way to get into it. Before it was just me and Dyson playing at our kitchen table against each other. And, well, at least I definitely wish I went to league a little bit sooner so I could have done better at the Portland regionals.
Yeah, so I think a good little rundown recap. If you want to play digitally, go ahead and just play PTCG online. It's great. It works. It's a functional product. It gives you a tutorial, gives you free cards to play. Totally valid way to learn. And if you want to get into it physically, look for the Battle Academy. See if you can find that to play with some friends and family, or look for those league decks and then play against people at your local store that you found in the event finder. There's kind of some pretty decent avenues Pokemon presents nowadays in order to actually find and get into the game. And then from there, it's all about becoming competitive, and maybe even a little mildly competitive.
Yeah, fun fact, one of ours truly, Trenton, took a battle deck to Portland regionals and made day 2, almost top 80.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a one-to-one of the deck, but it was using the same idea, and it was a Mew VMAX deck, and if you bought 2 of the Battle League decks, you were pretty close to the list.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was like you took a league bet, like especially with the Mew. Even now, you could buy that, spend about $10 to $15, and you have like just an easy tier 1 deck.
For sure. You might need a few other cards to make it work, but it pretty much has most of what you need in there.
And if any of you guys are in a platform where you can post comments, we'd love to hear more about how you guys got started, or what got you guys into playing Pokemon. Just to kind of give other people, more exposure to different ways people learn this game and how to start playing it and how to become mildly competitive. And with that, I want to thank you guys all for listening to us today. Please make sure to like, comment, rate, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
See you.
Those
Later, everyone.